How important is story in your selling efforts? Now, you're probably asking, well, what do you mean by story? When I say story, I'm talking about corporate inertia. Inside your story is your heritage. It's who you are. It's why you founded the company. It's also your vision and your mission. It's a commitment you have to the markets you serve. It's your corporate story that enables you to attract the right kind of talent in your organization and keep that talent. It's also your story that attracts the right kind of prospects to you and turns them into loyal customers. Stories are very, very powerful. They're almost trance-like in the effect they have on an audience. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Here's something that was shared with me way back many years ago. It was about a young British man who very early in his life set some very lofty goals for himself. He wanted to become famous. He wanted to travel the world. He wanted to become wealthy. And he drove himself. He wrote down those goals, and as a result of his drive, still at a fairly young age, he accomplished everything he had set out to accomplish. Now life threw him a new challenge. He had done it all, seen it all. There wasn't any new challenges for him, and as a result, he became very depressed, very despondent. Well, he's sitting in his den in this English countryside one late January night, and he's sitting there in front of a roaring fire, and he's in this very depressed, despondent state. In fact, he's contemplating taking his own life. He's that depressed. He's sitting there in this stupor when he hears this door knocker sound. He hears this. He gets up from this state he's in, and he goes to the front door, and he opens the door, and there standing in rags, shivering in the wind, is this little boy. Well, the little boy has come to ask the man for some coals because they had no way of starting their fire. Well, the man said, well, yes, you can have some coals, but you didn't bring a bucket to carry them in. The little boy said, that's not a problem, and went over to the man's fire, and in the front part of the fire, he scooped up a handful of cool ashes. And then he went deeper into the fireplace, and in those ashes cradled some glowing red embers and proceeded to walk out of the man's home. Well, this man was so taken back by the fact that you can carry red-hot coals in your bare hands when they're insulated with a bit of ash. It changed his life. He realized all of a sudden that he didn't know it all. He hadn't seen it all. In fact, he could learn something from this little boy. It gave him a whole new lease on life. Now, let's dissect that story just for a moment. If I were to ask you to describe that man's den, what did you see there? What was on the walls? Did you see a library on one of the walls? Did you see a lot of dark wood paneling? What kind of chair was this man sitting in? That's right, a leather wingback chair, wasn't it? What was on the floor? Oriental rug, maybe? Persian rug? Did any of you have sort of a Charles Dickens image that came into mind? That is the power of stories. It's almost trance-like. The reason you were able to see all that is because you were standing right there in that man's den. You were looking around at the ceiling, at the floor, noticing it because you were there. Stories have that effect on an audience. They help you sell indirectly, and your customers live in the experience. That's the power of story.